have loved watching you on Fast and Purple, Worm, Kill Kill, and seeing you DM was like a whole nother level of fun.
Really? Why?
Because it was fun to see, like, we've seen you as a player, but seeing you kind of tell the story and be able to maneuver with the players in a new way was really, really cool to experience.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you so much. I was so nervous. I was terrified. It's one of those things that I DM all the time. Um, but doing it for the show, the amount of prep we were going through it, and I was playing all these other games. I was really worried about it. And so, in fact, I missed the game before, which is Everyone Dies in the Styes, which was a Seth Green game, which is our premiere-ish episode. And I missed it because I was backstage, like sort of giving myself a pep talk.
Well, it worked because you nailed it.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It makes me really happy, actually.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what inspired the story for this one with you and like how they were kind of trying to join the Zentarum network?
Yeah. Well, I loved the Waterdeep setting. I mean, I wanted to build it around something I was comfortable with, and I felt like the factions that were there, I was responsible for with Beetle and Grimm's. I was sort of at that point the lead on that Waterdeep box. So I read the adventure multiple times. While I never played it, I've played in and around it before, and so I felt comfortable in that world building aspect of it. And I loved, I loved the fact that I was playing with such great players. So yeah, so it was about, I was the longest show we shot, which nobody's obviously going to know. But one of the things about the show is that, we always aim for an hour. We usually went over a little over an hour, hour 5, hour 7, hour 10. And we knew that the show would cut back to 48 minutes because every show is 48 minutes. So we were really terrified. Like an hour 10 to 48 seemed like, oh my God, we'll never be able to cut it. I think I was like an hour and 40 minutes long. I mean, I went really long because I set up all these like very cinematic things that I thought was really great. And I also started by saying that, I stood up in front of the audience and I said, I'm really nervous. And I wanted that to be a moment of sort of saying not only to my players, but to the crew, to the audience, that if you're nervous, it's okay to be nervous, right? That's part of leading a game like this. Every time you go into a D&D game, like I always find I have butterflies. But I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm prepared enough. I don't know if I'm good at what if I let everyone down. So we actually, in cutting those episode down, they cut out a lot of stuff. And one of the things I made them as producer, I went back and I said, I think we should keep that. I think we should keep that for the people out there that want to DM and are just nervous. So, yeah.
I really like that moment, especially because I feel like Purple Worm is such a good entry point for people to learn about D&D. And I thought that was a really good moment for people that have either like never DM'd or not really played before to know, oh, like people that are doing this professionally are still nervous. So I thought that was a really good decision to include that.
Oh, good. Thanks. Yeah. We did too. And I think everyone was fine with doing it, like adding it back in. I think all the editors saw were like, that's 3 minutes we can get rid of. We'll take that chunk.
I also now want the extended cut edition that is like a double episode.
We've talked about that. I mean, the problem is that you'd have to go back and sort of sweeten every episode, like the sound mix, and you really have to go back and re-edit everything. But we have talked about doing that.
Ooh, I like that. And then kind of what has been your favorite aspect of being on the show? Did you like being a DM, a player, or a producer the best?
That's a good question. I think my favorite part is sort of the creative process with my guys at Beetle and Grimm's being a producer, the idea of like having this idea for a show, playing it a couple times, pitching it, building out, really E1 has been a great partner, but like, the negotiation process with that, working with the agents, working with trying to get the best deal possible. And then going out and doing the live show at Guildhall, like really trying to build the show, try to break the show internally, like all the things that went into it, all of the pre-planning, all of the sort of in the trenches stuff, I thought was really exciting. Look, the performance is great. But to me, that's like, those are my best friends in the world. Like that process was really rewarding. And it's this idea like having a dream and seeing it come true, that arc, it was really powerful.
I love that. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about the table that you played with. I thought Seth Green's character was probably my favorite because it felt so Monty Python of like a murder bunny.
Uh-huh.
Can you talk
murder bunny.
Can you talk to me a little bit about like leaning into the comedy with these characters, because they felt like the epitome of silly murder hobo.
Yeah, it is, especially Seth. With somebody like Seth specifically, you really have to get out of the way. I mean, I try, I think that's one of the things that John, who's our resident DM on the show, and for us as D&D, as Beetle and Grimm's, giving them opportunities to be incredible, like setting it up for them, a chance for them to be great is really your job in that situation. And I don't play that way, right? I find that I try to find comedy out of life and death stakes, not try to play comedy outright.
Yeah.
Let the comedy be born out of the circumstances. And I think they did a good job, right? I think Michelle came in as like a puddle, and I was like, the water genasi is not a puzzle. I mean, there's a couple puddle. I was a couple times I had to bring it back a little. But all in all, I thought they did a great job. I think they accomplished the task. I like the way they set it up. And at some point, like sort of realizing that we were way over on time, like drawing up, like stop, like, really trying to control like how that whole thing was going to play out for me was something that, you can never plan for. I mean, I think one of the great things about the game of Dungeons and Dragons is that you can make all the plans in the world, but they're all going to be thrown out the window as soon as your players are given an opportunity to screw them up, right? And so that was a great example. I had all these ideas of how things were going to work, and then along comes this murder bunny, and you're like, oh, all of it's gone. So all of it is like not what I expected. So, but that's the great part about being prepared to DM a group like that.
And then what inspired your decision to have them be second level? Because we've only had first level characters so far.
So every single iteration of the game from the very beginning, from the very first time we even considered it, and we played around the table at my house, to the last game before the TV show, I was in every single iteration of the show. And so I've died over 1,000 times playing this stupid game. So as a DM, I thought it'd be funny to introduce them as second level to give them a better chance to live. Because I was like, this is our chance. We're going to make it. One of you is going to make it through because I'm DMing. So I thought that would be a funny little hit. Spoiler alert, they do not make it through. They all die.
No, yeah, they all die. Just epically wiped out.
Yeah, not a chance. No chance.
Why did you want Xanathar the Beholder to be the villain in your episode?
Because he's iconic. There's only one beholder with a name, so it's got to be Xanathar. I mean, I thought it was sort of like knowing the Waterdeep world. It's like having Strahd, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, imagine a show, if you will, that Strahd von Zarovich ends up fighting these first level characters. That could happen. So the idea of like having a named character, pulling from the lore and the legend that people know, we thought the fans would get a kick out of it. And so we went for it.
That's super fun. And then I am curious. So you have like with Questend, this world that you're building with the fantasy saga. Would you want to set an episode if there's a season 2 in that world?
I don't think so. It's an interesting idea. I mean, I think that with Questend, we are, if people don't know, I have a whiskey company. That whiskey company has on the back of that whiskey company has an ongoing saga. So every single bottle that drops, we continue a story from the very first bottle to the 16th bottle. So it's this whole saga. And like the first drop is Paladin, second is Rogue, third is Warlock, fourth is Dragon. And so each one of them has that character class and sort of a character in that journey. To mix the streams across the streams like that seems like it's probably not a great idea. And I feel like the world that may be too inside, you'd have to be a fan of both. And while that would be amazing, that's not always the case. I think that we're better served dealing in this incredibly rich tapestry of already proven out IP with the D&D world, right? And I think that's part of the fun of the show, right? You're seeing, Ravenloft, and you're seeing, Waterdeep, and you're getting these looks at different world build, Greyhawk, the world of Greyhawk's represented. So Eberron's represented. So you've got all these different world settings, which I think is it makes it part of the fun for the players, for the viewer, for the players and the viewers.
I get you. And then what did you take from your experience working on big franchises like Scream, Five Nights at Freddy, and Scooby-Doo into this project as a producer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that I've learned as I've grown, especially with the creation of Beetle and Grimm's and with Questend, which is if you build something passionately for fan bases that are passionate about what they love, then people will come out and support you. I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's is a great example. I think that Jason Blum said it best. He's like, we're not making this movie for everybody. We're making this movie for Five Nights at Freddy's fans. And so the idea of doing Fast Purple Worm Kill specifically for people who love Dungeons and Dragons, you're building content for people who are passionate. I think that's a really strong business model, but I also think it's super satisfying as somebody who's part of the creative process to build something I'm passionate about for people who are like me, gives my world joy. And so to me, if you're doing work that you love and it's satisfying you in a deep way, that's as good as it gets.
I completely agree. And then, so you've had the audience from when you were a player. What was it like having the audience there as a DM?
Great. I mean, I think that the more you play the show, the more you really understand how powerful it is to work with the audience, right? I think that we played at Gen Con, it was a huge audience. PAX Unplugged, it was sold out. We had 600 people packed in this auditorium. So as the show's growing, we're performing at San Francisco Sketch Fest on I'm dropping. Oh no, it's out there actually. But we're performing at San Francisco Sketch Fest on January 19th, and that will be hopefully a packed audience. So the more you play with an audience, the more you can play into them, the more you can use them, the more that informs your choices. It makes you perform at a higher level. It really elevates everything. So so that's the good news is that as a DM, I wasn't scared to look at them and engage, right? I think that playing so much has given me that sort of that confidence.
I love that. And then can you remember, were there any moments that had to be cut for time that were really hard for you to let go?
Yes. Yeah. So there is I went through their first heist together, how they became friends. All that's gone. Yeah. So that's gone. And then I did this thing where I preset the ending. So I sort of you're walking down this hallway and the lights go out. And so I'm and then I smash cut to them waking up in their beds. So I basically gave them the end at the beginning. So that was sort of a fun device that clearly did not work in the time the time allotted. I was one of the only shows ever that they had to pull a tape change, which is they had to sort of stop everything and come out and give me directions to get it back on tempo. And as they did that, I saw Johnny walking out. I'm like, I know I'm too long. I know it's too long. I will speed up.
I love that. I so want the extended version of this.
Oh, it's crazy. What you really want is me talking to John. Get out of here. Go away.
I love that. And then kind of what for you has been the most rewarding part of not only like making this show, but seeing audiences like respond to it?
Just that, just know that, we came up with this idea as five buddies and had this really cool sort of what we thought was a novel idea and a novel approach. And then building it out and working through it. And, the thing is about the show, while E1 was a great partner, everyone that came on board, top to bottom, asked the question, every single episode, every single character dies. Does that work? And really asking ourselves internally if we were right or wrong, I'll never forget the night before we went into our first week of production. I said, well, we are totally effed here, boys. And they're like, what happened? What did we miss? What did we forget? I was like, no, we literally got every single thing we wanted. We got a live accompaniment in Scott Passarella, was an incredible addition. We've got a live audience, which we did not have, and we really fought for, and we finally got, which was great. And then every element of the show, from first level characters to everyone dying, all the things in the show, and a host, and the host being Bill. Like, there was a lot of things along the way that we really had to fight for. We got, and that at the end of the day, if the show didn't work, it was 100% on us. And luckily for us, we think the show is a love letter to Dungeons and Dragons. And we hope, if anyone's out there and hasn't seen the show, if you happen to see, Matthew Lillard interviewed by Caitlin and Screenrant, look, my hope is that these little, whether it's Seth doing one of these, or I know David's doing it, or Alicia's doing, like, we have all these people coming to talk to you about the show. And we're hoping that, Deborah and Wool, who did it last week, who had, sort of a big piece of announcement, we hope that you find the show, because it's a love letter to Dungeons and Dragons. And our hope in doing this press is that we are this beacon that you find and you come find the shows, because they're maybe hard to find on platforms, maybe difficult to find on platforms, but now all the shows are available, and you can watch them anytime on demand. So so come check them out. They're great.
I definitively agree. This is one of my favorite actual play shows. It's so quick and so fun.
Yeah, it's super fun.
And then one of the things that I've been curious about, how do you guys decide the makeup of each table? Because the chemistry works really well, and it seems like it's not necessarily like, some of them are people that know each other really well, but some feel like people that maybe are playing at the table together for the first time.
Yeah, almost. I mean, every table except for the Glass Cannon show. With Troy DM, that was people he plays with all the time. A lot of that's luck. A lot of that is the spirit and how we went into it. There wasn't a lot of. The good news is, I think we went about creating the show like, just go have fun. That's the idea of the show. So there's not a lot of like us producing behind the scenes. You have to do this. Don't forget this. Like, there wasn't a lot of stress behind it. So I think that people got there and were like welcomed and loved and brought onto the table with like, hey man, go do your thing, have fun. Like, just have, all we care about is that you have fun. And if you have fun, the audience will have fun. And then it was important to us. I mean, I do think it was, we hired Brian Baldinger, who's our casting director, who's an incredible asset and was like a gift. We wanted every table to be diverse. We wanted to be the most comprehensive sort of look at what this community is, which is, racially, sexually, gender-wise, every single difference that we can represent on that table, we were embracing. So that was important to us. We wanted to make sure every table was not, we're very clear that we're 5 middle-aged white guys who put together a company, and we are constantly aware of that we need to make sure that we are lifting women, lifting people of color, lifting gender diversity and neurodivergent people. And so, that was important to us. That was important to us to make sure that tables were bountiful and represented the community.
I appreciate that. That's one of my favorite parts of the show. This episode truly just made me go, I want to play a game with Matthew Lillard as the DM. That was what you accomplished with this episode for me.
Oh, that's good. Well, I don't do it very often. I think I've played once on camera, like a Halloween episode, like 6 years ago, 4 years ago, or something like that. 3 years. I don't know. COVID makes it all go sideways. But yeah, I love DMing. I just don't do it very often.
Well, thank you so much.
In public, I do DM all the time, but not in public.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I love Faster Purple Worm, and these interviews are so much fun.
Thank you, Caitlin. We appreciate you doing them. We love the feedback and you are our talk back with Andy after the Bravo shows. And you are our Andy Cohen.
I love it.
Awesome. Thanks, love.